Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Thoroughbred Owners of California, better known as the TOC, welcome to our Conformation Clinic today at the Big Fresno Fair. My name is Frank Miramati. I'm the track announcer here, joined by our leading trainer, no surprise, one of the highest percentage trainers not only in Northern California but in the country. Stats don't lie. John Martin, if you'll please welcome him this morning. And to my left, from Harris Farms, Harris Ranch, Dr. Jen Bowers, a graduate of UC Davis. She has been with the Harris organization now for 12 years and does own a couple of degrees from UC Davis. The theme today is a conformation clinic and what does a fast horse look like? And there are varying ways in looking. There are ways in which you want to come out to the paddock and find out what horse looks ready to win on that given day. There are times in which you go to a sale and you want to find out what horse looks good as far as a purchase. And it's very difficult. It's a puzzle that a lot of us out in the public really aren't familiar with, and that's why we have these two experts. And when you talk about conformation, you're talking about the physical appearance of the horse, and it's really a tough angle to understand. And we're hoping that when you leave today, you'll have some of your questions answered. Because if you looked at me versus Michael Jordan, you know who looks like the better basketball player. It's fairly obvious. You're going to get a guy who's in perfect shape, who really has the eye of the tiger. But occasionally, John, you'll find an athlete such as a Sonny Jurgensen who might not look the part, but is able to outperform what may be the physical look. And I think that that's a good analogy to draw when it comes to horses, because some of the great horses of our time haven't been the best looking individuals. I think the general public would know that the first thing you don't want to see is a horse that's acting up, a horse that's excessively wet. Now sometimes they'll dump a bucket of water on a horse and the horse will be wet, but you don't want to see a horse that's sweating. Those are pretty obvious signs. But when it comes to looking at a horse who's calm in the paddock, what is it that the general public should look for?
A horse that's walking around, looking at the environment, not something that the groom is necessarily dragging around the saddling paddock, but a horse that's interested in his surroundings, looks like he feels good that day. I really like to see a shiny coat. A shiny coat really lets you know that a horse is maybe eating well, doing well, doesn't have any underlying problems. And I don't mind, if a horse is wet, kind of pay attention to the day. If you're feeling a little bit yucky and you're feeling a little bit wet, well, you know, they probably are too. So I don't really mind a horse being wet. I don't like a horse that's really pouring sweat when everybody around him is just a little bit wet and this guy's dripping and looking unhappy and maybe agitated because maybe he's running his race before you get to the race. This horse particularly looks quite happy. He's well-defined musculature. He's settling down as he walks around, nicely balanced.
What about, there's so much discussion, I think, in recent years about the ears of a horse kind of telling you what's going on. And for those who look at an ear of a horse, what are they really looking for, doctor? In other words, to find a horse that's feeling good, that's in the right mood, both before a race and after a race. Is there anything you can actually read from that?
Oh, sure. Ears of a horse should always be in motion. That's one of their primary sensors. So they are flicking back and forth and paying attention to their surroundings. So you want to know that a horse is doing that. A horse who has ears kind of at half-mast, sitting there and not really in motion, may not feel that good or isn't particularly interested in the day, so he may not be a good bet. So I like to see a horse that periodically will focus somewhere in the distance, both ears going up, saying, hey, you know, what's going on out there? I'm interested in the world. And then cock the ear maybe back or to the side, paying attention to what's kind of behind it, because he's really noticing everything around. And like, again, that's a sign of a healthy, happy, content horse. And hopefully he'll run to form. I mean, horses can't run beyond their ability to run. And obviously there's a lot of genetics and people spend a lot of money getting that horse that is the primary athlete. So a horse can only run as well as that horse can. But you want to know that he is able to run as well as he can genetically. And that's what hopefully, again, you know, the little seminars like this will help you pick those horses out.
What can the general public who is not with a horse on a daily basis look at to try to get an idea of a horse's legs and how they're doing physically? Because obviously you want to be at your physical peak in order to perform at the highest level.
Right. I think that when you're watching a horse over here in the paddock, the best thing to do is just make sure the horse is walking smoothly and to look down at their legs and make sure everything's tight and nothing's swollen, you know, and that usually gives you a good sign that the horse is doing pretty good.
you want symmetry, and the more horses that you watch, the better you're going to get at it, because you want to recognize what's abnormal by looking at a whole lot of normal. And just like, you know, that building with the pillars, they're all straight. If you notice, if you were to look at that building and one of those pillars was crooked, it would kind of make you a little bit suspicious about that building. And the same way with the horse, you want to see those legs coming out squarely from that body. And if you can, you know, get to either end and watch them walk and see if they walk correctly, heading at you, that you notice the legs are staying underneath that big giant frame. Those horses tend to do better. And I want to make a comment about the jockey and a horse run. Julie Crone years ago gave a talk, and she was one of the greatest jockeys, not just female jockeys, but jockeys. And she rode this horse Rubiano, and she was in a race, and he wasn't kind of performing up to par, and she kind of just started going, "Go Sparky, go Sparky!" And she's got this very high squeaky voice, and the horse won the race. But just to hear her say that story, I think a jockey can have a tremendous impact, just kind of emotionally on a horse. Horses are very gregarious animals. They really tend to like people. So that jockey that's really encouraging them with a lot of words and a lot of motions could really kind of make a horse get that little bit extra to get it across the line. So that's kind of something to watch out for as you watch jockeys ride in any particular race.
I like that you mentioned that, because my favorite track announcer is Trevor Denman, and the reason I've always liked Trevor and feel that he's the best at our profession is that he is able to see things that the general public simply can't. And as the race unfolds, he's kind of able to give you a 5 or 6 second head start on what's about to happen based on the body language. And one of the things that he mentioned to me one day is that the relationship between the jockey and the horse is so important that literally the horse can feel the vibe of a jockey that's feeling good and can feel the vibe of a jockey that's feeling bad, which is why oftentimes late in the day, when a jockey, for example, wins the feature race, which is typically the next to last race, they'll come right back and win the next, because they're carrying that extra momentum and energy, and the horse is actually feeling that. Is there truth to that?
Yeah, no, oh, definitely. And anybody who's ever ridden a horse, you know how you can really impact their performance. A lot of, especially like high-level things like dressage that are very minute movements, it's usually the person doing something wrong that's affecting the horse's motion, and not that the horse has done anything wrong. I mean, they're very sensitive to how we feel and what we do.